Well, my name is Ted Gardner, and I'm an interviewer for the Library Project, World War II Veterans, here at the Public Library of Cincinnati and Hamilton County. And it is the 10th day of May, 2007, and we have the honor and the pleasure of having retired Colonel Tom Ratliff, Army of the United States, resident of Cincinnati, Glendale actually, and our camera operator is Dennis Daly of the History Department of this wonderful library, and we're very grateful to the library to make these facilities available. Tom, you and I have met for the first time, but we already have established a common bond, and that is having known some of your family before. Where were you born, Tom?
Philadelphia. You
were born in Philadelphia. And did you go to elementary school and high school there in Philadelphia?
No. Well, I went to Morristown, New Jersey, Friends School for 3 years, and then I came back and I went to Whittier School in Price Hill.
Oh, for heaven's sake. So your family moved here when you were just a little boy?
No, my grandparents lived in Morristown. My grandfather was a former headmaster of Morristown Friends School.
Oh, how
and of course, my mother had gone there.
Yes.
And so I never found out exactly why I spent the first 3 years there, but I did.
Yes.
Then I came back. I went to Whittier, and then I went to Walnut Hills High School.
Okay. Now, Whittier is on the west side of town, isn't it?
Price Hill, yeah.
Price Hill. And your family lived in that neighborhood?
Grandview Hospital.
How about that?
Yeah. Well, my father was a psychiatrist, and he ran the hospital. So
he did?
Yeah, I grew up in a nut house.
I'll be darned. That's right. Wasn't it right off?
2700 Glenway. It's where Christian Bible School is now, I think.
Oh, yes. That hillside in
right.
there. Right,
yeah.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's a wonderful part of town. Well, my goodness, then from Whittier, you went to Walnut Hills.
Yep.
That prestigious school.
Yeah.
Now, you had brothers and sisters?
I had one younger brother, Larry.
Right.
No sisters.
No sisters.
Yeah.
And how did you decide to go to Walnut Hills High School?
I took the test and
you passed.
I passed. It was a no-brainer. I mean,
that's an important thing. That's very good. Well, you're certainly one of the honored alumni of Walnut Hills High School.
Yeah.
And you still have reunions, don't you?
We had one a couple of years ago. It was kind of a joint reunion. And
yes.
I was in the class of 36. And only about 40 people showed up.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I know. That's the trend these days, and but it's wonderful to, as we say, be among those present.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah, it's better than the alternative.
I'll say it surely is. Well, then okay, so you were in the class of 36. Then what did you do after high school?
I went to UC.
Went to UC?
Yeah.
And what was your field of study?
Psychology.
Psychology.
Yeah.
And
I didn't graduate. I was short credits at the end of my senior year, and then the war came.
Then the war came.
Yeah.
But you joined the Army before the war, before Pearl Harbor Day.
Yeah, because I had a low draft number, and
right.
They were
looking for you.
They were looking for me. So I wanted to get into something where I knew people, and I had my commanding officer was Gus Nippert, Captain Louis Nippert.
For heaven's sakes, I knew
him.
And
my uncle Raymond was a lawyer, and he was a law partner of Gus's father. Okay. So we had a family relationship.
I should say.
Not only that, but he was a fraternity brother, and he used to come around the SAE house and try to recruit people.
Yeah.
And of course, nobody had any part of it in the 30s. So anyway, I wound up as a private in the 107th Cavalry, horse mechanized in the horse.
Where did they first send you?
We went to Camp Forest, Tennessee.
Camp Forest.
It's in the middle of Tennessee, near the closest town is Tullahoma.
Okay.
Which is tiny.
Tiny town. Now, would that be, the biggest city would be what, Nashville? Or
Nashville was about 75 miles one way, and Chattanooga 75 miles east. So we were right in the middle.
Right. And of course, that's a beautiful country. And in those days, it was quite different from now. And how did you get down there? By train? Or?
Yeah, we took train. Yeah.
Took the train from Cincinnati?
From Cincinnati, yeah. I led 2 horses from Asbury Avenue down to the train station, load them in the boxcar, in the cattle cars.
Isn't that something? Now, where did you get the horses?
Oh, the 107th Cavalry had them.
They were the Army horses?
Yeah, they had an army on Asbury Avenue in Avondale. They had a polo team.
Oh, my God.
They played all over the country.
Isn't that something? My gosh. Were you a rider?
I had a pony when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I became a rider.
You became a rider?
Yeah, willy-nilly.
Under the gun, so to speak.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. So there you were, down at Camp Forest, Tennessee, and you were a private in the Army.
$21 a month.
$21 a month. How well I remember it. I was a seaman in the Navy with the same pay. Not that early, though. I didn't get in until right after Pearl Harbor. But anyway, how long were you there in Tennessee?
Well, we arrived there in March of 1941, and after basic training, we spent a great deal of time out in the field. First, we had maneuvers in Tennessee, and then early in August, we went to southern Arkansas, and we were in the big Louisiana maneuvers in 1941, yes. And we were in the field for 2 months.
2 months. Wow.
And then we came back after that and had furlough. Enlisted men get furlough, officers get leave. So I had 10 days at home and went back, and I had boils in my right armpit from tick bites.
Oh, wow.
I got down in Louisiana.
Terrible.
So I was in the hospital while the 107th Cavalry joined up with the 6th Cavalry down at Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia, which is right outside Chattanooga. And the 2 regiments formed 2 provisional regiments, one all-horse regiment, one all-mechanized regiment. And we went over in South Carolina, and they maneuvered against each other, and they ran us all over South Carolina.
I see.
And I think that was the death knell of the horse cavalry.
Of the horse cavalry.
Yeah, they had scout cars, and each scout car had 2, 3 machine guns, and we were just outgunned.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So that was in the summer of 41?
Yeah, they came back it was right after Thanksgiving, and of course Pearl Harbor was the 7th of December. We immediately took off for Fort Ord, and we stopped 5 times on the way to feed and water the horses. Army regulations say that every 24 hours you have to stop and dismount the horses, take them out of the cattle car,
right.
And feed them water for 7 hours.
Right.
And they just turned us loose wherever we are. Kansas City, St. Louis, Kansas City, then Denver, Colorado, then somewhere in Utah, it was dry. And then we spent Christmas Day, we arrived there in Reno, Nevada, 7 o'clock Christmas morning.
Oh,
so it's wide open town, you know. So we,
sure.
We went in, and 3 of us, and we called our families and had a milk punch, and then we went to church, Presbyterian church, and we were the only people in uniform, so we got invited to Christmas dinner by the pastor. So we got back on the train. As I say, they just turned us loose, no passes or anything, just be back at such and such time. Sure. And we didn't lose a man.
Isn't that something? Well, you were for those who don't know, Fort Ord is in California, and of course you were on your way to California, and you'd never been out there before in your life, had you?
Not at that time, no.
In the far west?
No. No. And I was at Fort Ord, well, we arrived at Fort Ord the day after Christmas, and Christmas Eve I left along with 9 other non-commissioned officers for Fort Riley to OCS.
Oh.
So I was only at Fort Ord for 5 days.
Yeah. But Fort Riley, Kansas was the cavalry.
Cavalry school.
Cavalry school. Is that where they started phasing out the horses?
No. We have to jump forward several years. I went back to Riley in 44 and left again in July of 45. At that time, there were 2 training regiments, mechanized regiment and a horse regiment, and they were still training horse soldiers.
Isn't that
They
something?
had 3,000 soldiers, 3,000 soldiers going through training there.
Well,
they'd train them on horseback and send them to the 1st Cavalry Division in the Pacific.
well, they had, as I remember, of course, the Army in the Philippines had horses.
The 26th Cavalry did,
That
yes.
was the 26th
Yeah,
Cavalry.
yeah.
I see, I see. And I know some of those guys were captured in the Bataan Death March and so forth.
They ate the horses.
Ate the horses,
Yeah.
didn't have anything else. Isn't that something? Just imagine, just imagine. Well, so that was the end of we used to call them the Horse Marines, you know.
Yeah. Well, I went through the horse section. There were 100 students in the mechanized section at the 3rd class of OCS, and 100 in the 100 in the horse and 100 in the mechanized. I was in the horse section, so I learned how to shoe a horse. I learned how to tell how old a horse is, how to tell when he was sick, and all this good stuff. And then after I graduated, I went to Fort Gordon, Georgia, in the 4th Cavalry Reconnaissance Squadron, mechanized, and they made me motor officer of the tank troop.
Oh, they did. Well, how about that? What was the first tank that you were involved with?
The first one was the M3 light tank. The British called it the Honey.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they were really fast.
What was the manufacturer?
I have no idea.
Okay.
It had a 7-cylinder radial aircraft engine, and it was really. I drove 175 miles an hour down the highway.
Really?
Ooh.
Wow, that's scary.
I didn't get a ticket.
Well, that now, what kind of armament did that tank carry?
They had a 37 millimeter gun, cannon in the turret mounted, and a coaxial 30 caliber machine gun, and there were 2 sponson, useless 30 caliber machine guns, and another 30 caliber bow gun for the assistant driver, and then there was a turret-mounted outside 50 caliber machine gun anti-aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
And this tank had a crew of 4, and it was a real pain for the crew because there were only 4 guys to take care of all this hardware.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
anyway, that was replaced by the M5, I think it was, M5 tank, which was the same thing except it lost the sponson guns.
Oh, I see. Now, sponson was a little platform on each side
there
of
were just 2 little ports.
I see, ports.
yeah.
Okay, got you.
One on starboard and one port.
Right. That's interesting that you'd use the nautical terms, fore and aft, and port and starboard.
Okay.
Anyway, and it must have been kind of crowded in there with 4 people too, wasn't it?
That's right, yes.
Very
Yeah.
close quarters
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
hot. You didn't have air conditioning.
Cold in the winter, hot in the summer.
Yeah.
But the cooling system, the engine cooling fan drew air from the tank lid, the covers, back through the fighting compartment into the engine compartment. So there was always a draft going through.
I see, sure.
So it was cold as hell in the winter.
Oh, I'll bet it was.
Yeah.
All that metal? Oh my goodness. No insulation at all.
Oh, no.
Oh boy, those were the days. Well, I'll tell you, this is something to be able to speak with you about this. So then, after you're getting your commission, and what was the next move?
Well, I was sent to, as I say, sent to Fort Gordon, Georgia.
Fort Gordon, that's right.
And I joined the 4th Cavalry Reconnaissance Squadron, mechanized. Commanding officer was Bob Quinn, who was a West Pointer. And the 4th Recon Squadron was a part of the 4th Motorized Infantry Division. And this was one of either 2 or 3, I think 2 or 3 motorized, and they didn't keep them. But the whole division rode, and they had half tracks for the infantry to ride around in, and they had half tracks. The artillery was towed by half tracks.
Yeah.
And so.
Well, that's interesting. You talk about a half track. A lot of people don't know what a half track is.
Well, it has Caterpillar tracks in the rear, and the front steering wheels are
just regular wheels.
Regular wheels with tires, yeah.
Yeah. And was that bigger than the tank?
No, it's just entirely different. It's a big open steel tub is what it is. It's armor. You're surrounded by half-inch steel armor, and it'll deflect a 30 caliber bullet or shrapnel. But
right.
But for an anti-tank, any kind of cannon,
no way.
No. But they also, those half-tracks also carried radios. They had plenty of room in for radios.
Okay, all right. And they were, was that a reconnaissance type of a vehicle?
No, it was a personnel carrier, and they eventually they mounted 105 cannon in them.
Good heavens.
And that didn't work, but they were just not quite heavy enough for that.
Right.
But,
right.
They were used throughout the war, mostly as personnel carriers.
Yes, yes. Well, tell me some more. You got any funny stories to tell about those days with the armored?
Well, I can think of these M3 tanks. These M3 were placed by M5A1 tanks, and these tanks came in, and they had the same armament, except that the 37 millimeter gun had a hydraulically operated, computer operated aiming mechanism that kept the gun barrel always level. It didn't correct for sideways motion, but when you were going up and down hills, the barrel all stayed the same.
Oh, yeah.
And this was a secret thing. So when we went to the railhead to take these things off the thing, there's a big envelope hanging from the muzzle of the gun in big red letters that says secret.
That's funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is funny. You wonder
so
about.
Everybody got in a big snit about that and ran around, grabbed them, brought them home, back, put them in the squadron safe.
I should say. Who was your commanding officer then?
This is Bob Quinn.
Bob Quinn,
Yeah,
and he was
yeah.
the West Point grad.
Yeah.
Was he a colonel, or what was his?
He was lieutenant colonel.
Lieutenant colonel.
And we, in the summer of 1942, I married my wife in Augusta, Georgia. And we went on a honeymoon down to Sea Island, 5 days, came back, and the first thing that greeted us, well, funny, is an edict that came down from Yuhu Ben Lear, Lieutenant General, who was commanding officer, 2nd Army. It says that all officers will sleep on the post every night. So that meant we had quarters in the hotel Partridge Inn in Augusta to start out, and Lucy became good friends with a Betsy Goodwin, who turned out her husband, who was a major, was our operations officer.
Okay.
and they got to be good friends. And eventually we rented a house with them together. But anyway, it meant that David and I would go in, we'd have dinner with the girls, and then we'd have to go back and stay on the
Go back to the bachelor quarters.
Yeah, yeah. It's a dumb thing.
Isn't that dumb? There's so many dumb things done in those days, I know.
But anyway, we started out, neither Lucy nor I, and incidentally, his wife was the only representative of the squadron who attended our wedding because there was a field exercise going on. And so everybody else was out in the boonies somewhere. But anyway, we didn't like the Quinns very much at first. And, but over the years, we kept, for some reason, kept in touch, and we became very good friends.
Isn't that wonderful?
And
yes.
Bob and Juana retired in Savannah. At that time, we had a condo in Hilton Head, which is close by to Savannah. So we always went down, had lunch with the Quinns.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's.
And then Bob died, and Juana kept in touch with Lucy by computer, email. And so when Lucy died 2.5 years ago, I took over some of her email, and so Juana and I got to be good friends by email.
Oh, isn't that nice? That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it is, as we all, we WW2 veterans are dying at a fairly alarming rate every day.
1,000 a day, I think.
3,000 a day, yeah, it is. Last year it was 2,000 a day, now it's 3,000. But it is important, and you know, the day will come when, unfortunately, people won't remember much about World War II. But this interview, and you're going to be in the archive, see? And that's important because you have a story to tell. So there you were, you and Lucy and the Quinns. From, now this was at Fort Gordon?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, from
Well,
there where?
Well, we went up to Fort Dix.
Fort Dix, New Jersey.
Yeah, and there the 4th Infantry Division motorized became the 4th Infantry Division, period. They lost all their half-tracks, and they lost a reconnaissance squadron, and they only got a troop. So our troop became the 4th reconnaissance troop and stayed as a part of the division.
Well, now,
and
how many were in a troop?
Well, it depends on what kind of a troop it was.
I see.
We had reconnaissance troops, we had tank troops, and we had howitzer troops. We had service headquarters and service troops. Sure. Tank troop had about, I think, 105.
Oh.
But anyway, so we split off from the 4th Division, and we became part of the 101st Cavalry Group, New York National Guard.
Oh.
And the 10th Cavalry Troop from the 10th Cavalry, the 10th Mountain Division came east from Colorado and became our A Troop. Oh. and so we moved back down south to Fort Jackson, and we stayed in Fort Jackson. And at that time, by that time, I was a 1st lieutenant, and I was in the maintenance section, which I'd become squadron motor officer by that time. Was under the command of a Captain Felix Kahn from Cincinnati.
For heaven's sake.
Do you know Felix?
I knew Felix very well.
Well, he's a horse's ass.
Yeah, but you know, his widow still lives up here in Wyoming. You know Peggy.
Yeah, I knew Peggy, sure. Yeah. Well, so I
won't tell her what you said.
Well, she knows it. He made us go on 10-mile marches once a week. Oh. And there's a bunch of mechanics, and I really resented it because we had work to do.
Of course.
And it's 4 hours out of our week, and I really resented it. So while we were at Fort Jackson, we had a change in the table of organization, And the squadron motor officer's job was bumped up to captain, and we got 3 warrant officers. So our communications non-com and our squadron maintenance non-com and the personnel non-com all became warrant officers.
Ah.
And I became a captain, and I was no longer in squadron headquarters. I was a staff officer. I was in squadron headquarters, not headquarters troop.
Right.
So Felix was not my boss anymore. So he put on his steel helmet and said, "Let's go." And I said, "Well, I'm on my way to the office, thank you." And he went his way and I went mine.
That's interesting.
Well, anyway, this warrant officer in the maintenance section had been the squadron motor sergeant. He had been my troop motor sergeant when I was in the tank troop. He was from Cajun, from Louisiana, Coleman Mansell, very smart guy. Long time Army. He'd been in the 8th Infantry. He had joined in '36, so he'd been in the Army a while. And it turned out he was a hell of a poker player.
Ah.
So we had our own little officers club up at the north end of Fort Jackson, and there was a nightly poker game. And we're talking about dollar ante pot limits.
Big deal.
Big bucks,
yeah. Right.
And Felix played every night, and he lost his shirt every single night. Well, he could afford it.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
His father was president of the State Stove Company in Hamilton.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. That's really interesting. Yeah, I remember Felix very well.
Well, he was in my class at Walnut Hills.
Oh, okay.
So I knew him there.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Well, Peggy and I have done some musical things together over the years.
Yeah.
So that's how I got to.
But, a good Irish Catholic girl married
Yes,
Felix.
Mary. Well, I should say, and this is funny because my wife and I come from the West Coast, and we came to Cincinnati in 1955, so we've been here quite a while, but it's just been amazing to meet people and realize and really a close kind of strong bonded community Cincinnati is.
Well, not entirely. Lucy thinks Price Hill is somewhere close to Indianapolis.
Oh, I see.
I'm serious. She's never been west of Mill Creek.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
Till we got married.
I'll be darned. So she was an East Side girl?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, gosh.
She grew up on Edwards Road, Hyde Park.
Oh, my word, I should say. Well, that is true. Cincinnati is a very divided city from west to east. But I guess I'm talking about the East Side mainly. But getting back to your very important experiences, and of course, you were a leader and you were helping train your troops, weren't you?
Well,
was that part of your duties?
No. When we went to the 101st Cavalry Group, our mission was Coast Patrol, and we were a part of the Eastern Sea Frontier.
Oh.
And we left Fort Jackson and went first to Camp Pendleton, Virginia, which is just south of Virginia Beach. Mm-hmm. And we were there not very long, 3 or 4 months, and we patrolled from Fort Story, which is the mouth of Chesapeake Bay, down to the North Carolina border every night. And we moved from there to Eatontown, just south of Eatontown, New Jersey. We were satellited on Fort Monmouth, and we patrolled from Fort Jay at the north to Cape May at the bottom of New Jersey every night. Right. We had one troop at Port Republic, New Jersey, which is near Atlantic City, that had from Brigantine, New Jersey, down to Cape May, and the rest of the squadron patrolled from the south end of Long Beach Island to the mouth of Newark Harbor every night. And we had one exciting night. I was a duty officer, and we got this excited phone call. A patrol was an M8 armored car, which was like a four-wheeled tank, had a turret with a 37-millimeter gun and machine guns. So a patrol was one M8 and two Jeeps. So you had 4 men in the armored car and 2 in each Jeep, a gunner and a driver. So I got this excited phone call from the staff sergeant, and he said, "There's a submarine out in the ocean in front of me. What do I do?" And so this submarine had popped up and had flown a flag, and he didn't know what it was. So he fired a shot across the bow, and it stopped. And the guy comes out, and he started he's waving all these flags at me. He said, "I guess he had flags doing the." I said, "Well, we had ties with the Navy Yard in Brooklyn, and with the Coast Guard, and with the FBI. We had teletype communication with those people. So we got on the teletype, and we found it was a Dutch submarine.
I'll be done.
And he was flying a Dutch flag, and the sergeant didn't know what it was.
Of course. Well, that's interesting. You meet.
Well, there was at that time they were still sinking ships right off the Jersey coast, and there's a strict blackout up and down the coast.
That's what I was going to say.
So we backed up the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard walked the beach every night, horseback or on foot.
All right.
And we were the fast backup for the Coast Guard.
Now, were there any Coast Artillery emplacements along there? Did you?
No, there were down at in Virginia Beach. Fort Story was there.
Okay.
And they had 16-inch disappearing guns that they exercised once a month.
Wow.
And they notify everybody so you could open all your windows and doors. Sure. They were noisy.
I wonder if they ever fired on enemy submarines. I don't think so.
I don't think so.
And of course, the Coast Artillery was phased out because, you didn't need it anymore.
No, well, the big defense against the
invasion,
principal against the German subs were the blimps.
Yes.
Which cruised up and down, and they had sonar detectors. And that sort of obviated the need for the Coast Artillery.
Well, and
because the blimps would notify the Coast Artillery or the Navy when they'd send a corvette or a destroyer or a DE and depth charge them.
Right. Well, I know that was a very effective implement of operation for defense, because I remember out on the West Coast, for example, we had them, and they had they built those great big huge hangars for the blimps out there in Oregon on the coast.
Well, we already had them in New Jersey.
Yeah, right.
Remember the Hindenburg?
Sure.
Well, that was in New Jersey.
How about that? And just the 70th anniversary of that Hindenburg is either been or just recently or is coming up.
Last week, it was just last week.
This weekend, 70 years.
Last week,
since the Hindenburg went down. Just imagine. Well, I can remember as a boy, reading about it in the news at that time. Well, Tom, so there you were patrolling the coast, and what else happened?
Well, I guess they decided they didn't need us anymore, so the 101st Cavalry Group was moved to Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And so we got this is the middle of August. Lucy was pregnant. I sent her home when we moved out there about 4th of July.
Hot.
So we got out there, and the officers' mess was about a mile from the cantonment area where all the troops were, where we worked every day. So the word came, you will walk back and forth to the mess hall. Well, what happened was nobody ate lunch. Well, you walk up there and you're all sweaty. By the time you get, you have to change clothes, take a shower, come back, and you go back to the troop area, and you're all sweaty again.
Absolutely.
It was just dumb.
Yeah.
So anyway, we were there for about a month or 6 weeks, and we got word that we're going to move to Fort Riley, and the other squadron and the group headquarters got orders for shipment to Europe. So we went out to the day after we got the news that we were going to Fort Riley, I got the news that my daughter had been born. And so I got 5-day leave to go home and greet the new offspring.
How about
and,
that?
So I wasn't on that leave. I had a car, and one of my mechanics drove it out to Fort Riley, and I took the train out later on. So we became school troops, a part of the 29th Cavalry Group. There was another squadron, the 32nd Squadron. We were the 34th Squadron. And we ran exercises that were designed by the cavalry school cadre or the instructions staff. Every day we sent units out in the field to run these exercises.
Right. And
somebody decided that we had, by this time, we had M24 light tanks, which had a 75 millimeter gun. And we also had the howitzer troop, which had 75 millimeter howitzer carriages on tank bottom. So someone decided that we should be artillery backup. So we sent our tank troop or howitzer troop commander to Fort Sill to learn how to be an artilleryman, and he came back. And then he endeavored to train these tankers to become artillerymen. We had to learn indirect fire. So we spent a lot of time out on the range learning how to be artillery, which was, it was cold in the winter in Kansas. So. So in January of 1945, we got word, this is after the Battle of the Bulge, and you could see the handwriting was on the wall for Germany.
Yes.
We got word that the squadron was being disbanded, and I got another 10-day leave. Went home. Lucy had not joined me yet at Fort Riley, and so I went back and I joined the CRTC Victor Troop, V Troop, which was a light tank troop, training troop, and I got there pretty much toward the end of one training period, 13-day training period. And so by that time, all the misfits and the deadwetters had been weeded out and things were moving along. And I really didn't have too much to worry about. But when the new group came in, we had half a dozen bedwetters. So they get a Section 8 hearing and medical discharge, and they're gone. Right. But then I had one bad boy, and he was a problem right from the start. He'd come in and complain to the first sergeant, and the first sergeant warned me. He said, "We got to watch out for this kid." Well, he finally wound up. The MPs picked him up in Kansas City, driving a stolen car that was packed with bootleg cigarettes. Oh, for heaven's sake. So he was court-martialed and sent off to Leavenworth or somewhere. Oh, but somewhere along the line, by that time, I had gone through his personnel file. I found he had his mother was in the pen in Minnesota for manslaughter, and his father was doing life term at Ohio State Pen for murder. Oh, so I get this guy, but on the other end of the group, you get 350 of these raw recruits. Right. The first thing you have to do is teach them to march, so you can move them.
Left foot, right foot.
Yeah, move them from here to there. I had a kid who had a PhD in biochemistry, and he was married, and so Lucy, we had quarters on the post by this time in Carpenter Court. That was a second-floor apartment, and above the second-floor apartment there was maid's quarters. So Lucy decided she'd like to have a maid, so I put the word out to the first sergeant that anybody that was married and had a wife that liked that, so not cook and clean, but just be a help around that, babysit and be a help. Right. And the going rate for this job was $10 a month, plus food.
Just imagine.
Yeah. So anyway, it turned out the wife of this doctor, or whatever his name was, volunteered for the job. Well, she and Lucy just didn't fit at all because she really didn't want to work. I mean, she didn't have a clue, and so Lucy fired her. We got another girl who was a farm girl, and she worked out just fine till we had to leave. So in July, I got word that I was picked for overseas shipment to join the 1st Cavalry Division, and went home on leave, went back out to Fort Ord. I was in the same barracks on the same floor that I'd been in 4 years before.
Oh, for heaven's sake. Isn't that amazing?
And so I was there for about I guess a week, and we got processed, and we fired M1 carbine on the range, got all fitted out with new uniforms and stuff, and got on the boat, and we were on a Navy PA, which is designed to be it's an attack transport.
Right.
Instead of lifeboats, they had landing craft. The George, what was his name? Well, anyway, George Clymer. He's one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence.
Oh, okay.
And so off we go. Our first stop was Eniwetok. We pulled in there to be refueled, and the oiler came up alongside us. And of course, all the passengers are out watching this operation, and there's a lot of backing and filling and swearing going on, and casting of ropes and poses and back and forth. So this oiler comes up, and he shears a gun tub off of the front of our ship and dumps a gun in the
Oh, my goodness.
into the lagoon. And so there was a lot more swearing and carrying on about that.
I'm sure there was.
And the next day they sent down divers and they got it back. But anyway, so the next place we stopped was Ulithi Atoll, which is about 700 clicks east of Leyte in the Philippines. And Leyte, by that time, had become a rest stop for Navy and Army. It was a big atoll, and the largest island, Magbag, we called the Enchanted Isle of the Pacific. And what they did, we clambered down nets into the landing craft, and they took us to a landing little pier and let us off down a gangplank. We didn't have to climb down the net. And at the end, there was a ticket booth, and they sold these tickets 10 for $1, and this was your cash to buy beer and soft drinks. No food on the island. They had basketball courts, they had volleyball, they had swimming beaches, they had baseball, and no women, so no bathing suits.
Oh, boy.
Well, by this time, my back and front and chest, the top had gotten pretty sunburned because we sunbathed on the deck on the ship. Sure. But not having a bathing suit, I sat out on a rock in the shallow water, and I got my back porch all sunburned.
Oh, for heaven.
Well, they had a bar with hard drinks for officers, and hard drinks were a quarter apiece for a shot and 1 cube of ice. And I tell you, boy, there's some people got really snockered on that day. No food.
Oh,
and we were there.
Stomachs.
We were there from 7 in the morning till 5 o'clock at night, and there were people who had to be carried back on that ship that night.
I'm not surprised. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, I know.
So we left there, and the next place we hit was Leyte Gulf, where one of the biggest battles of the Pacific took place.
I was in it.
You were there. And the Commodore of our flotilla, there were 8 transports and 5 escorts. And the Commodore, that's like a brigadier general in the Army.
Exactly.
1-star admiral. He had been at Leyte Gulf. So as we went through, he unfurled a big map of the area down from the bridge. So it hung down, and everybody could. And he leaned over, and he had a long pointer, as we went by, he'd point out the ships that were sunk that still had their prow, you could still see, and say that what happened to this ship and what happened. It was really very interesting.
Great.
So we went all through Leyte Gulf, and then we went up the east side of the Philippines, and that whole trip all the way up to Manila, I saw 2 canoes, 4 people. We went through past these hundreds and hundreds of little heavily wooded islands, the jungle, and just no people at all, no people at all. And we get to Manila Bay, we went past Corregidor and Fort Drum, and we anchored out in the bay, and again we clambered down nets into the landing craft, and they took us ashore, and we loaded into railroad passenger cars, hard wooden seats. Yeah, I can remember that. And they handed out K rations to everybody, so we had something to eat. But as we went along on the railroad, we could buy oranges and Filipino beer, which was pretty good, cerveza. And we finally got up to a replacement camp outside of Fort Stotzenberg, which is where the 26th Cavalry was stationed in the Philippines. So we fiddled around there for about a week or 10 days, something like that. Nothing was happening. And there was a group of 10 of us who had been, we were all in the same tent. And one guy, somehow or other, he got into the adjutant's tent in this replacement center, and he found this stack of orders for us to go to the 1st Cavalry Division.
For heaven's sake.
So he came back and told us about it, and I was putting in charge of transportation because I'd been a motor officer. So somebody went over and engaged the non-com in this tent in some kind of long-winded conversation. And somebody else snuck in the back and took this stack of paper out, came back. In the meantime, I'd gone out on the highway and thumbed a ride. I whistled down a 2.5-ton truck. We mounted up in the truck and went to the closest airport and got on a plane. And we flew to Ieshima, which is out off of Okinawa, and had to wait there several days for further transportation on up to Japan. We finally went on up to Japan on a DC-3. We landed at the airport. It was a Navy airport, southernmost Kyushu. They blew the tail wheel tire when we landed. It was scary. So we were there while the tail wheel got repaired. And I went on up to Honshu and joined the 1st Cavalry Division outside Tokyo then.
I see. And now this was what, August of 45?
This was the end of August by this time.
End of August?
Yeah, the bomb had been
right.
Yeah.
And they hadn't yet signed the peace treaty or
surrender.
Yeah.
We were ensconced in, MacArthur was in the Daiichi building.
Okay. Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, that. Oh my goodness. Well, you've seen so much history. It's just amazing.
Yeah. Well, anyway. So we were in Tokyo. I drove around Tokyo, and they had the fire raids in January of that year. Killed 300,000 people, more than the atomic bombs combined, and miles and miles and miles. There was nothing above ground but
demolition,
chimneys and safes.
Yeah,
that was it. Chimneys and safes. That's all you could see.
Yeah,
the streets had been cleared, but it was terrible, just terrible.
Yes.
So initially I was assigned as adjutant of the 1st Cavalry Brigade, which consisted of the 5th and 12th Cavalry Regiments, which the 1st Cavalry Division was organized under the old Square Division with 2 brigades, 4 regiments, 5 field artillery battalions, and So we're talking about 30,000 troops.
Good heavens.
So a brigade reinforced was the equivalent of an airborne division.
What was your rank by this time?
Captain.
You were captain?
Yeah.
Well, so you had some pretty serious responsibilities there.
Yeah, I had, well, when I was motor officer, I had 26 people under me. When I was in the training troop, I had 350 plus 45 cadre non-com, so I had about 400 people under me. And I had 35 or 40 tanks. I had about $10 million worth of equipment to worry about.
I should say.
Yeah. People don't realize. And I'm making $375 a month.
I know. And you were one of the better paid people.
Yeah.
Well, now all that equipment over there, what became of it?
Well, in the Philippines, and the outlying, a lot of it they just dumped in the ocean.
Just dumped.
Oh yeah.
I know they did that in the Marianas.
Yeah.
And Saipan and Tinian.
Yeah.
But of course, the occupation in Japan was so important. How did you feel about this? Still, MacArthur insisting that the emperor still be regarded as the leader.
Well, it turned out this was a smart move. When I first got there, we were in Nakano-ku, which was a suburb of Tokyo, the brigade headquarters. And we were told, when you go out at night, wear your pistol. And that lasted about a week because MacArthur had gotten together with the emperor, and the emperor told his people that we were nice guys now, and you don't have to. And I was safer walking around downtown Tokyo at night than I am in downtown Cincinnati. From then on, no problem. Now that won't say there are no problems. We had an MP battalion assigned to us, and we got the reports, arrest reports, and so on and so forth. There was a lot of rape going on, mostly with people in the quartermaster truck battalions, port battalions, those kinds of units. Not so much in the combat arms.
Right, I understand. Yeah.
And we also had an interesting report that was rendered weekly, about that thick. It was like a telephone book, and it was all the prostitutes in Tokyo, and their last discovered diseases. Went across the board, and that made you say, "Ooh."
No touch. Oh yeah, that was.
Well, Tokyo was a big city. It was 4 or 5 million people.
No, of course. Yeah. It was a big city and all that, and all the men over there, far from home, and all that sort of thing. And
well, of course, prostitution over there, it was a business run by the police, and it was a thriving business, and even there were areas that were supposed to be off limits in the city, and it was like a sieve. You could go anywhere you want.
Anywhere you want and get what you wanted, huh?
Yeah.
Well, how long were you there in Japan?
I left April. I guess it was the last week in March of 1946.
46.
I was in the brigade headquarters until I guess early November of 45, and then I got sent to the 5th Cavalry Regiment to be their adjutant. Their adjutant was going home, and they didn't have it was a complicated problem. And what I did was I found myself working for a Colonel Bill Jennings and a Colonel Roland Del Mar, Lieutenant Colonel Del Mar. They had been the commanding officer and exec officer of the 29th Cavalry Group at Fort Riley when I was there. So I had known them there and disliked them immensely. And here I am, this guy, I call him Rollo. He was meticulous. He took notes on every telephone conversation that he had and filed the notes.
My word.
In alphabetical. And
for what purpose?
well, I don't know, but he was a hard guy to work for. He really was.
Yeah.
I mean, am I
We're through?
okay? Yeah.
5 minutes.
Okay. I would write draft memos, and he'd just scroll across and say, do it again. Not what's wrong or anything.
No.
And I'd do it 14, 15 times. Do it.
Indiscriminate.
And I said, what do you want? Just do it right.
And he, oh dear.
And
Some people.
There, as I said, I call him Rollo. and we got, in January, the regiment got 4 Red Cross girls. And they came down in January. It's a 40-mile trip from division headquarters where they had checked in. They came down in a command car. There's no heater in it or anything. So, and of course, the first thing they have to do is go to the bathroom. We don't have any ladies' facility.
No ladies' room.
So anyway, well, we got that problem solved, and we rigged up something for them, got them in quarters. But Rollo, I kept in touch with one of these girls. I played bridge with her there, and I had a real adventure with her. You can read about it in those papers over there.
Okay.
Not only her version of the adventure, but mine. So,
yes.
And they parallel each other pretty well. But anyway, we had a little Shinto shrine park out in front of our headquarters building, and so Colonel Delmar, he trapped Vivian there in a tree. He pinched her bottom one time, and she slapped him, and so she asked me if he'd ever said anything about it. I said no. And she said, well, he wouldn't dare, would he? I said, no, I don't think so.
No.
So he was a jerk. Yeah.
Well, Tom, it's just it's fascinating, and I want to tell you how honored we are to have you here and get you on tape. Now, you're going to be in the archives. You realize that?
That's right.
You're going to get a DVD of this interview, and one will go to the Library of Congress for the archives, and one will stay here at the Public Library of Cincinnati and Hamilton County.
Okay.
So you're in history now, and we're very honored, sir, to have you here and have your story of your service, for which our nation is eternally grateful. That might sound a little empty, but it comes from the heart, and we're glad that you're still, as I say, among those present.
Yeah, thank you.
And it's a wonderful honor.
Well, it's good to meet you.
Well, it's good to meet you too, and I can just see your brother in you right now.